Raise your hand if you're ready to put the fun back in fundamentalist cliches. Up. Yeah, we are. Hello, Internet. My name is Jeff, and I'm a pastor, and today we are talking about one of my least favorite phrases. You may have heard this one before. It's, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. So, yeah, any troubling thing that's in Scripture that you happen to read, well, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. This is one that I've seen on keychains, one that I've seen on bumper stickers, but then again, I went to a Christian college, so of course I have. But you've probably heard this one as well. God said it, I believe it, that settles it. But I want to ask 3 questions about this phrase, God said it, I believe it, that settles it, which is, did he, do you, and does it? So let's start with the first bit of the phrase, God said it. Did he? Like, did God actually say everything that's in the Bible? Because, yeah, there are some parts that are sort of in quotation marks with God speaking, but what if it doesn't have quotation marks? And even with the things that are in quotation marks, there are some contradictions. And if we've talked about contradictions before. You should probably just go back and watch the video that I did about contradictions. But at one point, God says, thou shalt not kill, but then when the people of God are ready to go into the promised land, he says, kill every man, woman, child, and also all of the livestock. So which did God say? Because these are 2 very contradictory things. And then as far as everything else, like the stuff that isn't in quotation marks with God speaking, the Bible doesn't say that God dictated every single bit of Scripture. Paul talks about Scripture at one point in one of his letters to Timothy, and he uses the word inspired for Scripture, which doesn't mean that God spoke it, it means that God breathed it. So, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. I want to ask, did he? Did God actually say these things? And no, not necessarily. There are some contradictions that are in there, and also not everything in the Bible is a quotation from God, and the things that are quotations, well, they contradict themselves sometimes. So we've got some explaining to do if we're actually going to tout this phrase, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. Let's move on to the next one. God said it, I believe it. I want to ask the question, do you? Do you actually believe some of the things that you are trying to defend by using this phrase? Because honestly, it's totally okay if you don't believe some of those things. I mean, look, you could just double down whenever you're facing some sort of doubt about something that's in Scripture, and you can say, yes, God said it, and I believe it, that settles it. But if you ask anyone where the greatest insights in their life end up coming from, it's usually not from doubling down. It's usually from asking questions, even about very well-loved things and well-loved beliefs. So God said it, I believe it. Do you actually believe it? It's okay if you don't. Struggle. Ask questions. It's all part of the game. And then we've got the last part of the phrase. God said it, I believe it, that settles it. And I want to ask, does it? Does it really settle it? I mean, let's think about this. What if we left everything in the Bible just settled and never asked any questions about it? All the stuff in the Bible about slavery, what if we just said, well, no, it's settled. All the stuff in the Bible about women not being allowed to speak, nope, it's settled. What if we left those things settled? We're not supposed to leave them settled. What if we left all the food laws in Leviticus as settled? We've reinterpreted them over time. And if we didn't reinterpret them over time, then, well, there probably wouldn't be a shrimp and grits dinner like we have at annual conference every year. Because we also put bacon on our shrimp and grits here in the South. Now look, I'm not just trying to trash some sort of well-beloved phrase here just for kicks. What I am trying to do is point out that whether it be what the people of God eat, or how they interact with Gentiles, or what even constitutes the makeup of the people of God, all of these things have changed and been reinterpreted within Scripture. Think about that. Scripture reinterprets itself on all of these fronts. And in fact, Scripture is very often reinterpreting itself as time goes on. Because remember, these are 66 books that were written over a very long period of time, hundreds and hundreds of years. Things change over that kind of time, and so things need to be reinterpreted, and the Bible does reinterpret itself. I mean, if you want to put it very simply, the way that somebody put it to me one time, our tradition as Christians is to reinterpret tradition. Our tradition is to reinterpret tradition. It's a tradition that begins with the Bible itself, because the Bible is always reinterpreting itself, because it's a series of 66 different books that are written over the period of hundreds of years. So of course there's going to be some reinterpretation that's being done over that course of time. So how do we properly honor this book that's actually a library of books that's constantly reinterpreting itself? Well, we probably don't honor it by saying, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. I think that we actually honor the Bible by reinterpreting it, wrestling with it, dancing with it. We ask questions about it. We hold things to the fire and see what burns versus what remains. So look, the bottom line is that the Bible is way more interesting than just being some static relic from the past. It's meant to be wrestled with and danced with and interpreted. In fact, that's how it presents itself. That's what it does to itself. So why would we dishonor this book by using a phrase like, God said it, I believe it, that settles it? All right, that's it for this week. That settles it. Click like and subscribe. Click the bell if you want to be notified as soon as I release a new video, but you can be assured that they will come out sometime on Tuesday mornings, usually. That was the most wishy-washy way to say maybe it'll come out on Tuesdays sometimes, usually. So yeah, you should probably just hit the bell so that you know in the future. Anyway, that's it. Grace and peace, everybody.